hear it. It's really loud. Well, I only have one job, and I did it successfully. Welcome to our March meeting for Campaign for Liberty. It is still daylight out. First of all, that's brand new.
But we need to warm up.
This is unusual. We want to welcome you here tonight. My name is Lowell Sheets. I'm just part of the steering committee for Campaign for Liberty here in Harford County, and I want to welcome you on behalf of all of the steering committee and everyone who's been here before. How many people, this is your very first meeting? Very first meeting. Awesome. Wow. Other than Jeff, I think we just had to put them all on one table. That didn't happen on purpose. But just want to share with you just for a moment a little bit about Campaign for Liberty. Our mission is to promote and defend the great American principles of individual liberty, constitutional government, sound money, free markets, and a non-interventionist foreign policy by means of educational and political activity. We believe that freedom is an indivisible whole, that it includes not only economic freedom, but civil liberties and privacy rights as well, all of which are historic rights that our civilization has cherished from time immemorial. And we are glad you're here tonight. It's refreshing to see so many faces. I just want to applaud you that you are here tonight, so I'm just going to give you a round of applause. We have some great speakers tonight, some people that we're very proud to have a part of our organization and family and lives. But I want to make one quick announcement about our surroundings. If you've never been to the Knights of Columbus before, Jerry's in the back there, and he has coffee, decaf, soft drinks, beer, wine, even some mixed drinks as well. So, like in the old tavern days, you feel free to get up and partake and patronize Jerry in the back there. If you would turn your cell phones to vibrate or off, that would be great for your neighbors. But do feel free, even while the meeting's going on, if you can quietly go back there and do whatever you need to do. That's a part of the evening. We're just glad you're here tonight. We're going to open up with a word of prayer and a pledge to the flag. So let's stand together if you would. Dear Father, we thank you and we praise you as we come before you tonight. We thank you for life, for liberty, for health, for freedom, for the very air that we breathe, and that you hold all ourselves together. And we just praise you for who you are, for what you've done for us, that you've placed us at this time, an amazing time in the history of the world, where so much is enjoyed and we have so much responsibility. Pray that you would help us to take a stand for you and for liberty, that we might be a blessing to not only our neighbors and our friends, but to our posterity. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thanks. You may be seated. It is with great pleasure that I introduce our next speaker. He's been probably at as many Campaign for Liberty meetings as I have in the past couple of years. And he's just been a good friend, a good patriot, and I'm just so proud to actually introduce him as our speaker and as our sheriff of Harford County, Jeff Gaylor.
That's about the warmest welcome I've received anywhere, so thank you very, very much.
Do you want to use remote?
How do I click forward?
This one.
All right, got my lesson. Yeah, for those new members, thanks for coming out. Hopefully I drug you here tonight, but happy to have you. You know, it's always a great turnout and always a great group. And I came to many meetings as a candidate. This is my, I don't have Lowell tied on attendance, I know that, but this is my first meeting since being elected. Eric Roby, who's with me in the back, stand up and wave, Eric. Eric. hired Eric as my legislative and community liaison, so some of the things you're going to hear about tonight that we've done in our first 100 days, particularly the legislation. I know Eric was here last month and kind of gave, 2 months ago, and kind of gave an overview of some of the stuff we were proposing. I'll let you know the status of those bills. It's not been a pretty session in Annapolis if anyone hasn't been following that closely. Also with me this evening, and those from the campaign trail, Steve Bodway. Steve's my colonel. And just for the record, he is also the highest paid member of the Sheriff's Office. It's not me. Right under that bus. So, for those who don't know the story, Steve and I ran against each other in 2010. And the reason neither one of us were successful in 2010 is because we ran against each other. Going into this campaign, we learned, as you do, being a candidate for public office, we learned that teaming up was a lot better strategy and made us a lot stronger. And with the support of a lot of great people, we took a bigger win than we expected to take. We wouldn't take the win. We took a bigger win than we expected to take on election night. So thank you very much. What we have found, running for office, I really thought what we would find is office and complaints I had heard and some things we had seen was an office that wasn't that operationally sound. That the men and women out there on the street, that there were issues responding to calls for service, how they handled calls for service, and those kind of things. That's the complete opposite of what we found. We found in our assessment period, which involved every division level commander coming in and doing a presentation to the command staff. And just real quick, my command staff, we had 5 majors going in. I got rid of pretty much all of them. Not pretty much, I got rid of all of them. I brought 2 in myself, and I promoted 1 from the detention center. So I've downsized the number of bureaus, the number of higher paying jobs, to roll those down into deputy positions. We're going to do that through captains of those civil service ranks. I can't arbitrarily or just, I can't happenstance just come in and remove those positions. We have to wait for retirements and stuff like that. But the goal is to downsize the amount of command staff and put more deputies back on the road, and those who are on the campaign trail. Christina knows. You heard me beat that drum a lot, and we are living up to that, and hopefully every promise I made on the campaign trail. But what we found was a very operationally sound department. The men and women out there are just dedicated to serving the public, dedicated to the jobs that they have to do, and they know what they're supposed to do. What was in the way was the administrative end, which I thought would be more sound. We found just the opposite. It's kind of a nightmare. Policies are outdated. They were paying for something called CALEA, which is a standards. What it is a bunch of police officers retired, couldn't find something to do. They put together a group, and they go around and tell police departments whether they're doing the same thing or not, and they charge you a lot of money. So we have abandoned CALEA. The state police just went through it right before I retired, and I think it was about $1 million that they were spending to get CALEA certified. Well, you don't need CALEA. You can be best standards. We can look out to the International Association of Chiefs of Police and other organizations to see best practices. Someone does it better, you go out there and you take their ID, you take their policy, and you copy it. It's not a hard thing. Trust me, I'm a policeman. You're not a brain surgeon. It's not hard work. Just good common sense goes a long way, I like to say. But what we found weaknesses, and that we are trying to address here in our first 100 days, is in reporting. Inventory control. Inventory control was a nightmare, and particularly in guns. The sheriff's office, I had somebody tell me, do you realize that if a deputy and a Bel Air Town police officer, or a deputy and a trooper are in a firefight together, and God forbid one of them runs out of ammunition, the other one can't toss them a magazine because they're carrying different guns. Well, I have worse than that. I can't have a deputy shooting next to a deputy because they're carrying different guns. So we are looking to standardize that, get rid of everything except the Glock, which is the main handgun that's uniformed personnel are carrying. But everybody, investigators wanted their own thing. Drug investigators wanted something different. We're doing away with that. It's an extra expense. When you buy something if you're making a bulk purchase, you get it cheaper. When you start to make several little mini purchases, it costs you more money. So it's not good housekeeping, so we're getting a handle on that. And policies and procedures, again, just outdated, and we are working slowly. Each one, a long time to review, but we're working slowly at making those revisions. First 100 days, and this is just a snapshot of a few. This was a big one, and this will come up again. Changed the policy to allow correctional deputies to carry handguns to work if they have a valid Maryland handgun permit, which they're required to have. They are not, the correctional deputies at the detention center are not sworn law enforcement, so they can't, even though they're trained, we train them through the exact same training that the road deputies receive. They can't by law just carry a gun if they're not in their employment, time of employment. So what I do with a letter from me supporting their handgun permit, asking the state police to approve it, they are being approved, I'm happy to say. We have changed the policy before. If they had a handgun permit, they were not allowed to carry their gun to and from work. Well, my idea on this, if there's somebody in the detention center who has an axe to grind with one of the correctional deputies, where are they going to find them? They're going to find them on that parking lot coming to or going from work. So for the purpose, and this will come up again, for the purpose of self-defense of my correctional deputies, we put this policy in place that now allows them, if they have that permit, to come and go, and they store their gun in the facility, in the secure part of the facility before entering where the inmates are housed. So that'll come back up. I know I did a presentation here as a candidate about the helicopter program, and when we get to questions, I'm probably going to get a helicopter question. It's still under assessment. I think you know from the presentation I gave here before, for those who attended, I was far from sold on the program. I'm still far from sold on the program. Today, because of some current concerns, I actually grounded the unit until we can meet and go over some issues until Friday. So right now, it's not going to fly for the next few days at least, and then we'll have to see what happens at my Friday meeting to see where we stand on some issues. Roughly, the helicopter was sold us to the citizens as being $125,000, a free helicopter. To maintain, it's only going to cost you $125,000 a year. Personnel costs were never built into that. When you add the personnel costs in, the helicopter's costing us $1 million a year. And this is your money, and it's taken 8 police officers off the street. I committed as a candidate to keeping the unit for a year. I've hired an assessor to look it over and give me an independent report. And something the assessors reported has caused me some concern that I've stopped the unit right now. But that's where that stands. So hopefully, if there were questions coming on that, that's about the most I'm going to give. We started a series of community coffees. We've done 2 so far. Is the third one scheduled there?
April.
In April, do we know where it's going to be?
Starbucks.
Starbucks in Bel Air. And Starbucks is not the most Second Amendment friendly, but we're still going to reach out to them. But we're going around to different places in the morning and just trying to be more accessible. What I'll give the incumbent, the sheriff that was the incumbent before I took office, he was very good about reaching out into the community and establishing relationships. We're going to try to build upon what he had done there and go the next step. So we are taking, like being here tonight, we're going to take every opportunity we can to get out in front of people and let them know what we're doing, the good and the bad. We don't hide from things, so and share. And the coffee with is just, you know, if people can't come to an evening meeting, kids' activities or something, then we want to give them a morning opportunity. We want to give them an afternoon opportunity. We want to present different opportunities to get out so they can interact with me, Eric, my colonel, my command staff, so that we can hear the concerns and adjust the office accordingly. And for anyone who doesn't know it, you heard me say it on the campaign trail a million times if you were here before, but we do have the largest sheriff's office in the state of Maryland here in Harford County. You have a full-service law enforcement sheriff's office, meaning we do corrections, we do criminal patrol, we do civil process, and we have the detention center. So those are the 4 traditional roles of the sheriff. We have them all. We have nearly 600 employees, and we have a $69 million budget. Behind the school education, nice of you to join us, Dave.
I apologize.
Yes, sir. I was just joking. Behind the Board of Education, we are the 2nd largest expense that the taxpayers are asked to pay. So with anything we do, I've told my command staff we're going to answer 2 questions. Is it effective? If we're going to do something, is it effective? And back to the helicopter, is it effective to the crime fight in Harford County? Is it something that we feel would be an effective strategy? If the answer to that is yes, the second question is it fair to ask the citizens to bear the expense? So those 2 questions will be answered on anything that we initiate. Change in protocol, this got quite a bit of press. We changed anytime there's a heroin overdose, there was a deputy normally responding with an EMS unit and going to the scene, but what we didn't have is that expertise of a drug investigator. So we've made a simple change. We now send the drug investigator on all heroin overdoses in the county. The drug investigators are more specially trained in order to know what they're looking for, what evidentiary things that they want to gather to collect intelligence on who is selling this stuff in the community. We are not targeting these heroin overdose victims. We're not targeting, and that was a criticism that, hey, we're out there taking a shot at these poor helpless people who have overdosed instead of worried about their medical care. We're not investigating them. We're trying to figure out where they got their drugs. This change has led to 6 indictments, or 6 felony charges on distribution so far, I think it is. 6? I'm looking for a nod. I think it's 6. So this was a good change, and we're targeting the dealers through this change. I think the card is in here later, but I'll touch on it now. Something we did to address that criticism was we came out with a contact card. So instead of just picking up the information that we want to target the drug dealer, we are leaving behind a card where when that victim feels like if they're ready to reach out for help, God willing they survive the overdose, if they're ready to reach out for help, then all they got to do is call the number on the card. It's peer-to-peer contact, so they'll talk to someone who has been down that path, who can identify, who can steer them in the right direction. Step beyond that, we are also, whether they call us or not, that information goes into a system which a week later generates a phone call out to them. So if they don't take advantage of calling us, not us, the health department up here will reach out to them and try to initiate that contact to get that help in that direction. Weekly CompStat meetings, you've probably heard the term CompStat a lot. Basically, it's computer statistics. It's a way of putting concentrating your assets in problem areas. We are using a version of that, and that's something else I hope to roll out into the community in a venue like this, so you can see, as citizens, you can see how your police department looks at trends and patterns where we see, and we can talk about trends and patterns for the next hour, but we're seeing a lot of them, and they're all related to heroin. But you can see how the hot spots are identified and how we focus law enforcement patrol times and assets to be there at the right time of day or night to hopefully make an apprehension or to abate the problem. So we're hoping to roll that out into a community, another one of those community outreach things. We won't be able to talk case specifics, but we will be able to talk general things so you can get an idea how that process functions. And the Maryland Sheriff's Association Legislative Committee, they're combined Maryland Sheriff's Association with the Maryland Chiefs. So bringing Eric in with the expertise in legislative issues and my interest in Second Amendment and other things, I signed us both onto the legislative committee. We have spent 25 days in Annapolis this year. It's been an unfriendly year to police, and mostly undeservedly so. A lot of those bills are going to fail, and they would have cost you in this room a heck of a lot of money. Body cameras alone, I'm not opposed to body cameras. Body cameras alone for the Harford County Sheriff's Office would be about $2 million. So I think the in-car cameras have shown more than not, my experience with the state police shows the police officer's point of view. And when it does identify those police officers who are doing wrong, great. I don't want them in my police department, so we'll weed them out. I think cameras are a great thing. Back to my 2 questions, is $2 million fair in these economic times to put on the taxpayers' backs? Not yet. That technology will get cheaper. And that's going to fail, right, Eric? We think that's going to fail this year. So we spent a lot of time in Annapolis this year on a bunch of different things, Second Amendment included. We talked about heroin real quick, so I'm going to lean over this one. People talk about prevention and enforcement, or treatment and enforcement. It's all about prevention. If what we're seeing with this heroin, the purity levels, once someone gets on it, we can't get them off. And I listened to several mothers who have lost children testifying in Annapolis on one of the House bills, 222, which is on the left there, which was made it a felony to distribute heroin that led to a death, made it a 30-year sentence. And it also provided protections, liability protections for deputies or law enforcement or first responders who are equipped with Narcan. And I just attended that training myself, so I can now administer it. Narcan's a drug that blocks the effects of heroin on the brain. So if you have somebody overdosing, it's a nasal injection, and it blocks those things, and the person will recover on a dime. You still get a medical treatment, but they'll come around quickly. Even if they're not breathing, the act of injecting it into the nasal cavity will be enough force to kind of bring them back. We've been very successful with it, the Sheriff's Office. This was something that was started before I became sheriff, but it was the right thing to do, and I'm fully supportive. So far, the health department has paid for the medicines. You see the call to help cards. I'm going to touch on something else with the House Bill 222, but I lost my thought. The felony, the Narcan. I'll come back to it. We talked about 8 felony indictments. Oh, well, back to the mothers who were testifying about the loss of their children. One mother testified from Carroll County whose child had been in and out of rehab 9 times. That's somebody begging for help. But this drug is so addictive, it's so pure, and it's so cheap. We got to keep our kids, our loved ones, away from it to the extent that we can. And then you have prevention and enforcement to do its ends. Some of the 2A bills. Am I already on time? Okay. Senate Bill 100, this was the self-defense bill. I told you the policy I changed at the detention center for my correctional deputies. Well, this is a bill that Senator Wayne Norman put in that made good and reasonable, good and substantial reason. We all know that term is out there for getting a handgun permit, and the state police interpret it the way they want. If they want to give somebody a handgun permit, they said that person has good and substantial reason. If they want to deny it, they say you don't have it, and there's no clear line of what that means. So Senator Norman put in self-defense, meaning you don't have to have an active threat. You don't have to show a threat. If you want a handgun permit because you want a gun for self-defense, you want to be able to carry, then you would be allowed to. I went down and testified on behalf in support of that bill. In fact, did anyone watch Jack McCulley's testimony? He's a retired captain from state police. He was right in front of me. He did an outstanding job. I kind of put my foot in my mouth coming behind him. He used to be the commander of the licensing division for state police. He was the one making these decisions to issue or not. And he woke up and said, wait a minute, this is not right. We are rejecting citizens' rights. And he's an advocate now for pro-Second Amendment issues and being able to purchase and being able to carry. He did you can find it on YouTube, I'm sure. He did an outstanding job. You can't find mine, but I did I did okay. But I was disappointed I was the only uniformed law enforcement officer there testifying in support of that bill. And the fellow sheriff, I would like to have seen some of my fellow sheriffs step up and get behind that bill as well. The firearm safety training course, this is for the handgun qualifying license, which came around as a result of House Senate Bill 281, the Firearms Safety Act of 2013. They did nothing to promote safety. They require how long's the class? 8 hour?
4 hours.
4 hour block instruction, and then a one shot. Your gun has to go bang once. We testified in support of getting that class dropped. Do I believe it's a good idea if you're going to go out and buy a gun to take a safety training course? I absolutely do. Do I think that it's the government's place to tell you should have to take a training course to practice your Second Amendment right? I absolutely do not. First Amendment, and I had this in my written testimony, the First Amendment gets people in a lot more trouble than the Second Amendment. People opening their mouth when they probably shouldn't, when there's somebody much bigger there, or when my wife's standing next to me. The First Amendment gets you in a lot more trouble, but you don't have to undergo any kind of training to be able to go out in public and speak. You should not have to undergo any training if you want to buy a gun. Again, I'm not an advocate for not taking training. It's a dangerous thing. We see accidents all the time. There was a 10-year-old in the hospital yesterday that got into his parents' safe, knew where the key was, unlocked it, and shot himself in the shoulder accidentally. Thankfully, it was no worse. So I absolutely advocate for teaching our children, but also for ourselves to know what we're handling. Handgun ID requirements, that's the IBIS system, the ballistics testing. State police had that through a grant, and over 10 years, I don't remember all the numbers, but it's a waste. It was a waste of like $1 million. It has yet to solve any cases, and they're really not using it, but it's the law. I'm looking at Eric to see if I go wrong. That the law is still on the books. So we went down to testify about getting rid of this thing altogether. And do we know if that's going to pass or not?
Hasn't had a vote.
Hasn't had a vote yet. And then the assault weapons, House Bill 25, we submitted written testimony in support of this. I don't know if you can see the picture. That's me down there on gun day. I'm in the middle. The assault weapons, if you have a gun that's on the list that you can't get it replaced, you can no longer purchase because they've outlawed it. But you have it. You already have its grandfathered in. If it becomes stolen or if it's broken, they took lost out because they thought people would have used lost. But if it's broken, or stolen, you can get a replacement, or you can get the replacement parts that you need for it. So we testified in support of that. And do we know where that stands?
No vote yet.
No vote yet. You talked about this one when you were here last, Eric. This was a bill that I put a Second Amendment, in addition to the other things we did, I have a Second Amendment work group that I formed in the office. And Joe Woods, whose wife owns Maryland Quartermaster, he's a county council member, Dave Seaman, John, George Durst from Shalishu. Who am I missing? One of my majors, Eric and I. But basically just a group to kind of come together and say, what can we propose? And that's where some of the things that we proposed this year, including this one, came out of. And basically, not all law enforcement agencies in Maryland, there's something crazy like 160 police departments in Maryland, they don't all issue an ID card when you retire. That is a requirement under LEOSA in order to carry nationwide, in order to be able to have a LEOSA card, to be what George Bush put into effect, nationwide carry for retirees and active law enforcement. For a retiree, you have to have a card. Some police departments weren't doing it. So this was just a little piece, trying to knock a little piece off to get more guns out in society and take our citizens who are now retired police officers and allow them to carry it. So getting these standard ID card allows them to get that LEOSA card and carry. And we think that this is going to pass. It has been favorable all the way through. So again, it's not one for the multitudes, but our strategy out of the Second Amendment group that I formed is kind of to chip away at the corners of 281. The governor, when he was elected, came out and said he wasn't going to push for the entire repeal. I'm for the entire repeal, but he's not. So, or at least he's not willing to fight that battle. So we're going to chip away for the next 4 years everywhere we can through stuff like this. Emergency handgun permit. I was down there today and testified on this. And Curtis Bueller, where'd you go, Curtis? He's hiding over here. Stand up and give away. Curtis is your county council member, man from District F. Curtis has been working with us to get his handgun permit since becoming elected. Well, last year's 2013 Firearm Safety Act put a requirement in place that requires a 16-hour training course before you can be issued a handgun permit. So in addition to the handgun qualifying license in order to buy, they now want you to take another 16 hours, and all this is generating revenue. That's what it is. Make it more difficult, keep guns off the street, and generating revenue. So they want you to take a 16-hour course through the state police that they've approved, and our position on this one, and this is one of our bills, is that under emergency circumstances, prior to 281, prior to the Firearm Safety Act, the superintendent of the state police, under emergency circumstances, and we look at it as a domestic violence thing, if someone came in and said, I got to have a permit, he's threatening my life, he's going to kill me if I don't have a way to protect myself, the superintendent of the state police had the ability to grant a permit in advance, in emergency. So to put everything aside and look at good common sense and say this person needs this to protect themselves. That was taken away. That ability was taken away by the Firearm Safety Act. We just want to restore it. And although this training I don't agree with, that I will say it gives it 60 days. So even though I'd rather just do away with it altogether, it does give it 60 days. I have less trouble with this one than I do the HQL training because this is to allow people to carry out in the public. And to some degree, if you're carrying out in public and you're going to be called upon to protect my children who attend the public schools here, I want to trust that you can shoot the gun that you're carrying with you and at the right direction, the target you're aiming at. And most police officers cannot. In a high-stress situation, they're very inaccurate, and they shoot lots and lots and lots of rounds.
Crossfire.
What's that?
Crossfire. You gotta be
Crossfire, absolutely. So, one other thing on the handgun qualifying license that I gleaned over, it requires, do you have it later in the presentation? I don't want to jump ahead. It requires a one shot. And some places we found out, in order to get, this is the handgun qualifying license, the class you have to take in order to buy a gun. We found out some places are putting the gun in a vise, and you can't do anything with it, but just pull the trigger and make the gun go bang. You don't load it, you don't unload it, you don't do anything but make it go bang. Well, we've seen 3-year-olds make guns go bang. That's not a hard thing. So this was added. It wasn't part of the law in 281 in the Firearm Safety Act. It was added by the Maryland State Police through COMAR, through the Code of Maryland Regulations. We have drafted a letter and sent it to the new superintendent who was just confirmed last Friday, and we are awaiting response asking him to remove that one-shot requirement. That is another thing you're not testing anything by making the gun go boom. You can shoot yourself in the leg and you meet the qualifications. Throw it out because it's just made it more difficult. You could offer the class here in this room, other than you couldn't go outside and shoot. So they've made it more difficult through this one-shot requirement, and that was, in my sincere opinion, that was the only goal of the one-shot requirement. So we want them to throw that out, and they can throw that out through regulatory change. If they don't, then we'll be back next year to try to get it thrown out through legislative change. The warrant intercept program, Todd, where's Todd Fisher? Did you not like this? I think you wrote back on my Facebook page. Did you not like this? What this was okay. This was a bill that's it's already functioning in Anne Arundel, Baltimore City, and Washington counties, where if you have an open warrant, you are a wanted person, someone, a judge or a commissioner, no matter what police action or non-police action has started the thing, there is someone who has reviewed your paperwork that's not a cop who's biased and said there is probable cause for your arrest. We just don't want the government to do business with you until you rectify your warrant. We want the comptroller's office to withhold any tax refund being sent to you as a motivation to get your warrant satisfied. Come in on your own, get a letter from them. Instead of getting pulled over on the side of the road with kids and stuff in the car, you'll get notified from us, but you also get a letter from the comptroller's office saying, hey, you're due $500 tax refund, but you're not getting it because there's an open warrant through the Harford County Sheriff's Office. Please turn yourself in at the time of your convenience, and we'll send you your money. It was not going to be held on married filing joint, and it wasn't going to be held on service members, but everyone else would have their money held. This bill, and it's shown, in Anne Arundel County they were able to close 770-some warrants in the first 2 years of this program. We have 2,700 roughly open warrants here in Harford County. We just want to bring that number down. And the lower the number of wanted people on the streets, the lower your crime is. It goes hand in hand. So actually Delegate Glass was very unfriendly to us on this bill. He actually reached out and tried to generate a lot of resistance to this bill, and it looks like they're going to put this into a summer task force, which pretty means they're going to kill it this year for the counties that asked for it. And it was Carroll, Montgomery, Cecil, Harford. Who else? Am I missing any? Which one? Talbot. We'd all asked for it because other three counties were having success for it. We asked for to do it locally. They weren't willing to do a statewide bill. And we just heard today, down there testifying today, that this thing's going to go to a summer task force and they're going to kill it. Summer study or task force, whatever they call it. So they're going to kill it. Very disappointed. It would have been a good bill had it come through. Okay. Sheriff's Handgun Safety Course. The HQL class I was talking about, I won't be that long. I'm getting the close sign, but wrapping it up. I'm right on time. The handgun safety course I was talking about, the HQL. If we can get that one-shot requirement dropped, what we're exploring doing, and we've met with some people who are offering the class currently. We want to offer this class for free. We can't do the volume that through the sheriff's office, but we want to do it in our classrooms, or even come out to a room like this and offer it. Right now, I think they're charging $100. I don't know how much of that is that straight charge or to the fingerprints and stuff. We wouldn't be able to cover those costs. But just because I don't believe it should exist in the first place, I don't believe as citizens you should have to go out and pay for it. So to the extent we can, I would like to offer, this is something we're exploring doing, it's far from done, and a lot of it has to do with that one-shot requirement. But I would like us, and if we're able to pull this off, we'll be the first police department in the state to do it, and probably will stay the only ones to offer it. But it's something we're exploring doing. So real quick, that was a snapshot of, and I can tell you I've never been busier, but I love every single minute of it. And again, I thank you for the invite to come out. And I had 10 minutes a minute to go, so we'll take some questions, and then they're going to throw me out.
Jeff, how does that affect the military, prior military people?
Prior military are not affected by the HQL. In good standing, not HQL or the 16-hour. You're exempt on both, right?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Sir.
What is Glass's objection to
Well, his one objection is he feels that with the climate toward law enforcement, which we've seen in Annapolis a lot, that it is unfriendly to certain demographics, that it's unfriendly to African Americans. And again, this is out of the hands of whatever police action And it has almost a review process because there's a judge or a commissioner who's looking at a statement of probable cause or who's looking at a failure to appear on something and saying, well, somebody didn't do right. They're issuing the warrant. Police departments don't issue warrants. That's his objection. And instead of coming to meet with us, which is what I was disappointed in, he went to some of his community members and stirred the pot and tried to create resistance, which it's actually, the task force thing is coming out of Montgomery County. They're the ones killing it. He was not successful. In the local delegation, every one of them was 100% behind us except for Delegate Glass. Any more? Is it about the helicopter? Sir.
I think you got to explain a little more about the helicopter, the fact that you got 3 of them, and actually 2 of them are spare parts, the fact that one worked, and the fact that it is ancient.
They got rid of one before I got there, so they're down to one flying and one that can be restored to flight mode. And now, and this just recently came up, and it kind of aggravates me in the sense that things do, that when we were sold this program, when the citizens were told about this program, they were told that they had to move then because these things only come around very, very rarely. The whole 1033 program where the feds are getting rid of all the outdated old equipment. Well, there's a memo on my desk which I've said no to, where we have available to us 2 helicopters that are 25 years newer. The ones we have are 41 or 43 years old. We have 2 now, where they weren't going to be available forever. Now I have a memo on my desk saying, not this program's under assessment, but hey, can we go ahead and get 2 more in case we keep it? Absolutely not. So they're newer, they're fancier, they have something about a certificate where they can be used, and someone even had the audacity to suggest to me that they could be used to fly executives, to and from far distance. I could fly to Annapolis instead of drive down. Well, I don't mind driving. I will continue to drive to Annapolis, and until this assessment is done, we will not be procuring new helicopters.
Just in case anybody was thinking maybe that's a favorable thing, I think they needed to know the whole story.
Right, and the other part of that whole
They've
thing,
been handed down to you too, from 2 other departments.
from other departments where they did not succeed because of the expense that goes hand in hand with them, and the and as a candidate, I spoke very candidly. I came out of the state police. We have the best helicopter program in the world, not just in the state, not in the country, but in the world, in the Maryland State Police program, which every time you renew your tags, you're paying for it. So I am concerned, I was concerned, I'm still concerned that it was a duplication, that it is a duplication of effort, and our assessment will pan that out. But as a candidate, I gave it a year, and I'm a man of my word to the maximum extent I can, and that's where we are. We're 100 days in. Christina?
Can you tell us why the helicopter was grounded for the last 4 days, or will be? You kind of threw that out there. Why are they?
I just did it as a teaser. No, it's the assessor brought up some concern that the helicopter unit does not have the proper expert supervision that it needs, and I'm not going to have anything flying around with 2 human lives in it. If somebody's telling me, I'm not going to have police officers on the road if they don't have the right supervision. I'm not going to have a helicopter in the air if someone's telling me that's not the correct supervision. So the person making the assessment made the comment several times to someone else. So I said, we're parking it until I can get a handle on it, because that does not fly. Yes?
I had seen with the previous sheriff's administration several times signs near Route 1 and Hickory where there were narcotics checkpoints. Is this something that you're going to continue? I mean, I see the potential for the Fourth Amendment to be abused if people aren't.
I'm not familiar with them ever conducting a narcotics checkpoint. Yeah. And I don't know that they're legal if they were to be conducted. So I'm not familiar with any firsthand that they were done.
There were signs, I was never stopped, but I mean, I had seen a sign that said, checkpoint ahead, and apparently one of my friends said they stopped them and they were looking for narcotics.
Well, there's no signs owned by the sheriff's office, I can tell you, that say narcotics checkpoint ahead.
Okay.
So no, we won't have any. Now, we just did run a DUI checkpoint with the state police St. Patty's Day, and I went out and checked that because I know there's a lot of people who are opposed to it. There are constitutional ways to run it. Yes, if you pull in and you decide not to roll your window down and wave, then that's what you're required to do, and you get to go on about your way. But they have been found to be constitutional, and I'm not opposed to DUI checkpoints. I know that makes some people unhappy, but I went out to see for myself. It was very cold. I stood out there as the line worked. So yes to DUI checkpoints unless something changes, but no to narcotics checkpoints.
I mean, it was the impression that he had given me was that he was told he was going to look at the vehicle for narcotics.
Right. Not that I'm familiar with, but no, we won't be doing
It said checkpoint ahead. And
Right.
It was during the daytime, it was on Route 1. And I had seen a sign that said checkpoint ahead. He had said it.
That sounds like it might be a DUI checkpoint where someone said something that was misconstrued. I'm just speculating without knowing for sure. But I've never seen one. I wouldn't support one. Yeah.
Tag scanners. Tag scanners.
Oh, I'm glad you brought that up. I see Eric smiling back there. Delegate Glass put a bill in to make it so that the tag readers could not go out and pull gun information to show that you're a registered gun owner from another state.
So they are
can't-
doing that?
They can't do that.
No, they are doing that then? Why would you
They
put
are.
a law?
That's why it's not going anywhere.
So
He
they
couldn't.
have been doing it.
They have not been doing it. It can't even be done. That's one of the things I checked on when taking office, because the tag readers came in after I kind of retired from the state police and I had that 2-year gap. The systems won't do that. Not that they might not ever be capable of it, but they're not capable of it now. Everything's open in the future. God only knows what we'll see in the future, but they're not capable of it. He couldn't even get a second out of his own committee to get his bill moved forward. So his bill has died.
How come you're giving Glenn Glass such a hard time tonight?
Glenn
I think he's a pretty good guy. He's got
Glenn's a great guy. I attend to pretty much every one of Glenn's fundraisers, but Glenn didn't come and meet with me. Glenn went and stirred the pot anti-law enforcement. And you know what?
You should take up.
I will take it up with Glenn, but I will speak anywhere factually about what he does or what he doesn't do, or Councilman, and we have his lovely wife here with us, who's on the county council. If they were advocating against something that I thought was promoting public safety, as the warrant intercept bill would have done, I'm gonna let you know about it. Yeah.
Sheriff, I was going to ask you, what information do they get from tag scanners? And do you feel that tag scanners are constitutional? Or not?
Am I a big fan of them? No. Have I seen them solve some cases? I've seen them solve police shootings and stuff. They get intelligence information, so you can go back. I don't know what the retention period is, and that's part of what makes them constitutional. But you can go back and you can get stuff like whether there's a flag on the tag for an insurance violation, anything that NBA tracks.
I mean, they're not downloading any information off the ECM, off of the car, there's nothing going on like that.
No. But now EasyPass is a whole different system. I mean, you can get a ticket for speeding. Your EasyPass can be tracked for how fast you go through, and you can get a ticket for speeding through the EasyPass lanes. And most people here know I speed cameras. I'm not a fan of speed cameras. We will not have speed cameras in Hartford County over the next 4 or 8 years or whatever. Unless Delegate Glass wants them. Just kidding.
He's a good guy.
He's a good guy. He's a good-hearted guy, but there's ways to do things and there's ways not to do things, and that was one of the ways not to do things. So he didn't hide from it. I'm not hiding him from it. Anything else? And I think I'm probably over time. And we can't stay. My wife is out spending money in Vegas, so I have to. I have the children, so I have to go home. But I'll see you dressed more casually in a future meeting, and please hit us up at any time if there's anything you hear about, that you have concerns about. And Eric is kind of my extra set of ears and eyes and hands to get out into the community. So hit either one of us up.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thanks very much, Jeff, or should I say Sheriff. He is a trained observer. He's one of the only people that actually sees me holding up my hands to tell him how many minutes they have left. So I guess we'll give him credit for that. Thanks very much. We're glad to have had him with us, and we're glad to have had him with us at so many meetings. Let's just give him one more round of applause. Our next speaker, that was for you, Jeff. You weren't paying attention. Our next speaker is a YouTube famous person. He's just a great patriot. He's done some amazing things. You can see him on YouTube. He's just a welcome addition to Campaign for Liberty and to our circle of friends. And I just want to give a big welcome to someone who's going to be talking about the blimp situation. It's not a good year when you have a spy blimp looking at you 24/7. And that's Bob Phillips. Bob Phillips.
So we're going to start off with a short video that aired on TV, and it does express some of the concerns that I'm going to address here in my presentation.
This morning, a blimp is hovering over the Baltimore suburbs. It's the newest system from the Army to protect major cities along the East Coast from cruise missiles or large drones. Chip Reed is in White Marsh, Maryland, looking at the blimp and fears it could be used for other purposes. Chip, this is really interesting. Good morning.
Yeah, well, good morning, and there it is over my left shoulder. It's hard to tell from here, but that blimp is massive. It just kind of appeared out of nowhere several weeks ago, and some people in this area are wondering if they're being watched.
Everybody knows their positions?
At the U.S. Army's Aberdeen Proving Ground in Maryland, soldiers were practicing the complicated choreography of launching an unmanned blimp nearly as long as a football field. Captain Matt Villa.
Every time I see it take off, it literally is like the first time. It's that amazing.
It takes your breath away.
Yeah, it really does. When it's up in the air, it is like literally like a balloon on a string.
That string is barely an inch thick and almost 2 miles long. Made of Kevlar, it's designed to keep the blimp in place even in hurricane-force winds. To passing motorists on I-95 about 10 miles away, it looks like a floating white whale and has thousands of people wondering, what in the world is it doing there? We asked Colonel Frank Rice.
It's a 3-year NORAD exercise that is going to test the integration of this into our missile defense system.
If the exercise goes as planned, in about 3 years, the blimp will be approved for permanent duty, scanning the sky for incoming cruise missiles. The state-of-the-art radar housed in that bubble underneath has a range of 340 miles, from Boston all the way to North Carolina.
We are in the NCR, the National Capital Region, is our geopolitical center of power for the United States. We have to protect it.
He says threats could potentially include missiles launched from a Russian aircraft or submarine or by terrorists from a hijacked container ship. Eventually, there will be 2 blimps.
This blimp would be to detect any cruise missiles coming in. The other blimp would be to do what?
To target missile defense to that threat.
Do we have that missile defense in place?
Yes, we do.
Can you tell us all about that?
I cannot.
I had a feeling you were going to say that.
Similar blimps have been used on the Mexican border to detect smugglers and in Afghanistan, but those are equipped with cameras, and that has some people alarmed. Ginger McCall is with the Electronic Privacy Information Center.
People who live in the shadow of this blimp are concerned.
What did they tell you?
That they are very unhappy that this thing is here. It bothers them to look up into the sky and see it looking back at them.
So people who are worried about being spied on by this eye in the sky, what do you say to them?
They have absolutely nothing to worry about.
Nothing?
Nothing to worry about, no. There is no, like I said, there is no cameras on board, and there is nothing that can look at any individual person.
We read that answer to McCall.
Does that answer satisfy you?
No, not at all.
Why not?
Because I have these documents right here that say that the secondary purpose of this is to surveil and track surface-moving targets.
She obtained the documents through a lawsuit under the Freedom of Information Act.
Even without the video surveillance, these blimps are designed to track and to surveil surface-moving targets. That is people, it's cars, it's individuals going about their daily lives.
The Army insists they have no plans to use that blimp to spy on Americans. But after all those revelations about NSA spying, some people in this area and civil liberties groups say they are skeptical at best. And let me show you one other amazing thing about this blimp. That is one serious piece of high technology. But take a look at the system they've rigged up to knock ice off the blimp. A slingshot, a technology that was around at the time of David and Goliath. Gail?
Boy, Chip, thanks. It's an amazing piece of machinery when you look at it, and then something as simple as a slingshot.
Yeah.
But if the Army was using it to spy, they're not going to say, yes, we're spying.
Right.
A lot of
Surveil.
Yeah, a lot
Surveil.
of surveil. You're right, Nora. A lot of interesting questions raised in that piece. Thank you, Chip.
We're not safe on a rainy day then, because they bring it down every day it rains or it's cloudy or windy. So I'm only safe when it's sunny.
So, I've got some notes here, and I've made copies if anybody's interested. It has links to Raytheon, to an article in the Washington Post, as well as an article in The Intercept that has, during these links, you can find the Freedom of Information Act documents that she referenced in that video. So the JLENS, it was developed by Raytheon. It stands for Joint Land Attack Cruise Missile Defense Elevated Netted Sensor System. It's made up of 2 aerostats, as they said there. It has a 360-degree high-range definition radar covering up to 340 miles. And as you just stated, they fly year-round except for when there's inclement weather or when they need serviced. Originally, they were planned to be 3 dozen aerostats at a cost of $180 million each. They were scaled back to the 2 existing prototypes after operational failures and massive cost overruns. One aerostat was totaled in its manufacturing and test facility in North Carolina. Apparently another one was tethered and broke free, and it totaled the other one. According to an article in The Intercept and the Washington Post, the Army has claimed it has no current plans, that's the quote, to add cameras or infrared sensors to share information with federal, state, or local law enforcement, but it has declined to rule out either possibility. Okay. However, in a test last year, Raytheon did equip one of the aerostats with an MTSB, multispectral targeting system, that provides both day and night imaging, laser designation, and laser illumination capabilities. So they have tested, it's easily retrofitted. As it stands now, it can provide high definition radar. Now, when you look historically at what radar is, and the fact that when radar was originally implemented during World War II, it was really used, they could see a periscope from U-boat submarines. Radar has come a long way since then. I mean, you can track movement, you can track the shape of an object. They're not going to be able to tell color of a vehicle, make, model, but they're going to be able to track the shape, the origin, direction of travel. This is going on for a 3-year program. So if you live in Harford County, it can track your movement. What they're doing with this data, they won't say. Extensive red actions and the hundreds of pages of documents related to JLENS in response to the Freedom of Information Act that was referenced in that video during the Electronic Privacy Information Center leave the true scope of the project unclear. The Army's contract with Raytheon states that it will be evaluated based on its, and I quote, potential to grow and accommodate new and or alternative missions. That is in their contract. So if the mission changes, if the administration or Congress deems that, hey, we're going to add signals intelligence, which can spy on your cellular communication or optical or laser imaging systems, the technology is there. It's currently being used on similar devices in Kabul, Afghanistan. Right now, the scope of the mission is very strictly tracking air and ground objects using the radar system. Anybody want to take a stab as to how much each one of these blimps cost? Well, they're actually aerostats because they're tethered. 1.4 billion apiece. Billion. 1.4 billion each. Now that is not including the operational costs. Congress has just passed legislation. They just passed something that gave them, I believe it was 43 million operational cost, and I can't remember if that was for 6 months or a year, but it's 43 million for it to run. It was either 6 months or 1 year. I'm not.
How many of them are there?
Two. Well, there's also 2 mothballed in Utah where they originally tested it. I believe it was Dugway Proving Grounds that they did the original testing of the devices. But they were drastically cut back from the originally planned 32 because of massive cost overruns, the fact that they're ineffective and they're very expensive to maintain.
And again, so my concerns, give 1 second, I'll answer your questions. My concerns are this. What are they doing with this information that they're collecting on movement of vehicles? The cost, obviously. I mean, you know, as a taxpayer, I feel like $1.4 billion, you know, I feel as if, you know, wow, we're really being fleeced. And the other concern is, you know, the potential for it to be expanded upon, retrofitted with, you know, imaging or signal intelligence capabilities. At that point, I mean, we've been lied to repeatedly by, I mean, about Fast and Furious, about Benghazi, about the IRS, lowest learner emails, the NSA. Repeatedly, this administration has wiped its feet on the Constitution. So, you know, I have concerns that, yes, from the information that I had gained talking with the public information officer, someone from APG was supposed to come tonight. They could not make it. They were going to address everyone here. You know, they said that they're very strict in scope and it has radar capabilities that can just track movement and they can't see people. For now.
Until there's a collapse.
Well, until their orders change, you know. Now, she seemed very concerned. She believed that, you know, if these people that are operating this are primarily National Guard, so I would venture to say that, you know, many of them probably are sympathetic to Oath Keepers. And I would hope that I would. Well, my feelings are. I mean, I was part of the National Guard, and a lot of people are very. They believe in the Constitution. They believe in the oath that they took. So I would hope that if somebody sees something that is deemed as an unlawful order, they'd come forward and, you know, speak out. But, you know, as you said, it's compartmentalized. Does anybody have any questions? Yes.
Yeah, is it flying so high that it can't be hit by a high-powered rifle?
At 10,000 feet,
it's 2 miles in his chamber.
Yeah, it's well. There's two of them. One of them is a targeting, and the other one is a fire and control. So there are two blimps. One is fire and control, one is targeting. And I'm not sure how far apart they're flying. Right now, I believe it's only one of them that's operational. They're going to launch the second one here shortly. But no, I don't believe at 10,000 feet that you. Yeah, and the reason that it is that Aberdeen Proving Ground was chosen is because it was restricted airspace. They wouldn't. It's already restricted airspace. They wouldn't have to spend any more money than they've already spent, and that was a quote from their public information officer. You know, 1.4 billion apiece.
What do you mean by fire and control?
Well, so the primary mission of the blimp is to target an incoming cruise missile. It's supposed to be at basically the systems that on the links that I've provided here, if anybody wants copies of this at Raytheon, is that it's supposed to be firing as the ascent phase of a cruise missile. So it wants to engage the cruise missile before it's well on its way to the target. So after it's basically, there's 4 phases, and the second phase, after it's launched, as it's ascending to its target, that's when this is supposed to detect it and then have a fire and control. And you heard in the video, the officer say that they do have the capabilities in place to engage these targets if a cruise missile or drone, unmanned vehicle were, you know, approaching DC. The only logical argument, and I try to play devil's advocate when I look at issues like this, that I could see is that, you know, we know the goofball a few years ago crashed an airplane into the White House. He was from Harford County. Would this have stopped it? I don't know. You know, at $1.4 billion, would it be worth? And that's just the costs to build it, not to operate it. Would it be worth stopping a small Cessna from hitting the White House?
Bob, I was under the impression that these actually didn't shoot down incoming missiles.
They are tied into. They don't do it. It's a fire and control system. So it does not. One targets. One will assess and find targets. The other one will direct weapons to that target.
And those weapons are a separate system?
If you're familiar with the way that special forces often operate, they will laze a target, and it's my understanding that the secondary blimp has the ability to basically, this is your target, and then they can direct whatever resources, be it airborne or anything, into that. Yes?
That second blimp, being able to laser target, that would also have to have optical capability.
You would suspect that.
Can I speak?
But it hasn't been launched yet. So we don't, yes.
Just briefly, because I do missile defense for a living.
Okay.
And I can tell you that basically, you've got most of it right. The first basically sensor or radar platform would serve to detect the inbound cruise missile. The second one, and the first radar would cue the second one, which would be in the fire control loop for a separate shooter platform, okay? Deployed missile system. It's not intended to take out a Cessna headed to the White House or anything like that. The intent would be if you had a Chinese submarine who pulls into the coast of the United States and launches a cruise missile, there is no way with a land-based radar to detect that inbound threat. So we would be totally susceptible and vulnerable to a cruise missile threat launched from another country. Okay, so I would not defend it because I've seen abuses in terms of the government telling us one thing and doing another. It certainly has the potential for abuse, but I think there is a legitimate military purpose in terms of homeland defenses.
If you look at the way that these are used historically, they're being used right now for signal intelligence and for optical intelligence in Kabul, Afghanistan. The Israelis use them in Israel over Gaza to keep an eye on the Palestinians. They use similar devices.
Don't we do this already with satellites?
They can, satellites are going to be able to detect ICBM launches. They're not really. A cruise missile, like he was just saying, is going to be launched and fly at a low altitude. So this is really
defense for this up till now.
There is none. It's their low signature targets. They're very hard to detect. They fly very low to the surface, with a lot of ground clutter, and you've got to be looking overhead or you don't see.
If you go into Raytheon's website, it tells you the systems that they integrate this with on their website. One of them is the newest version of the Patriot missile battery. I'm sure most people are familiar with that if they watched any of the footage of the first Iraq war. That's one of the systems that ties into this. It's one of the systems, I should say, that is capable of tying into it. There's a list of about 5 or 6 of them on their website of weapon systems that they've developed to work with.
Say the website again.
I can give you a copy right here that has the 2 articles that I referenced. I referenced 3. There was also one on the Business Insider, but the one by The Intercept is probably the most in-depth. And then Raytheon, it has on their website, Raytheon is the manufacturer, and you can, in the article by The Intercept, it has a link to most of the testing that Raytheon has done.
So all they got to do is attack on a rainy day.
Yeah, it's not effective during inclement weather, so it doesn't fly. Yeah, it doesn't fly during inclement weather. Probably, this is just a guess, but I would expect it being an aerostat, being that it's tethered, it's probably susceptible to lightning strikes. And being $1.4 billion, I can't imagine it getting hit by lightning would do much for its radar system. Yes, Scott?
No, I just, some observations here really is people, we got to start connecting the dots, man.
Yep.
I mean, you got Lindsey Graham that has said the entire homeland is now a battlefield. You have a president of the United States that has claimed the executive power to execute any American citizen anywhere in the world extrajudicially without a trial. The United States government lies to us constantly about every single thing there is. You have to parse everything that they say. There's not video on this at this time. It could be on there tomorrow. All it has to do is the word has to come down, and that's what's going to happen. Fire control. So our illustrious Congressman, Andy Harris, helped the drone program to get established in the United States so drones can be flying around. So They can track surface targets if they want to. So if you are deemed, any person that is deemed a threat, then the fire control system can talk to the drone, and you're driving down the road in your car, and well, it's been nice knowing you.
And the funny thing about Hastings, another domestic terrorist.
Our founders would literally be up in arms over this. And the fact that people sit down and don't say anything about it and don't throw a fit about it is
the problem.
There's
criminal.
Yes.
You know, you mentioned that you mentioned that Andy voted for the drones. It's, I believe it was HR 648. I'm not positive. I don't remember it off the top of my head. But yeah, but he had one crash in his district that was being tested. I mean, it crashed and luckily it didn't kill anybody. You know, some of what you're talking about, you know, we could sit here and talk about foreign policy. I mean, it certainly is something that's going to be an issue. You know, I think that I can see where these could be beneficial as they are in you know, Kabul, to save lives in a combat situation. If you're a soldier on the ground, having the intel, the potential for it to be used, you know, to control the public. I mean, this is not. I'm sorry, but the continental United States is not a war zone. Harford County is not a war zone, and I don't believe for a second that we should be spending, you know, $1.4 billion apiece on blimps from our tax dollars. I mean, there's so many better things that we could be spending that money on.
Well, it's a war zone according to Lindsey Graham and John McCain.
Yes.
Would it be fair to say that this is a technology that has a legitimate, like Todd said, military purpose? I mean, it's not like this country is not under threat. It's not like we don't have enemies and we just have to remember back to 9/11. And does that mean we give away our freedoms and our rights and we become sheep and slaves? No. But this is where, you know, proper legislation comes in, oversight through the bodies that are already in place to see to it that this is, I'm not done.
Okay.
To see to it that this is not abused, because certainly this technology can be abused.
Certainly.
Just like our smartphones can be abused and our cars can be abused. So I think there's a legitimate reason for the, you know, there's a legitimate military use for this, and we should just work very hard to see that it's not abused.
We definitely need to be diligent in that. I mean, there's no doubt. I agree 110% that we need to be diligent. And even the information officer that I spoke with expressed exactly what you just did, that we need to be diligent and keep the heat on, you know, our congressmen and our senators and on our elected officials, and making sure that they honor the oath that they've taken and that they don't abuse the power as they have. So, I mean, they definitely, the people that are carrying this out have their concerns, you know, about potential abuses as well. And, you know, it sounds from everything that I've deemed that they're very honorable people, and I would hope that they wouldn't break their oaths. But, you know, there's a lot of people that would just follow orders when come to task.
If you don't mind.
Just a comment.
Yeah.
Okay.
If this was a project 3 years in the making, like they commented, and it just makes me wonder if it's truly a answer to a legitimate threat, or if it's just some kind of thing they've been working on ramping up.
This is going to be a 3-year ongoing project from the time that it was launched. This project has been ongoing for some time. It was tested in North Carolina at the manufacturing facility at Raytheon, and it was tested in Utah as well. So,
and how long ago was it started?
It's been going on for several years. I mean, at the end of the day, it's probably going to be a 6-year program.
Oh, but this would have started development, the material development process back at least the beginning of the Bush administration. It was probably in the Clinton administration.
Well, I mean,
in terms of the 1.1 or $4 billion or whatever it is, that money is sunk. It was spent long ago, and we could probably look to our former Republican president as a commander-in-chief who, within his administration, developed that.
They had to lay out the money, get the appropriations far before it going into effect. I believe it started in 2012.
But this is just sustainment costs. It's not $1 billion now.
The sustainment costs now are, I believe, $43 million, and that was. But it wasn't. I'm not sure if that was for a 6-month period or a 1-year period. I believe it was 6 months. Was $43 million that was allocated to run this for 6 months. So multiply the 43 million times 6, and you'll get an accurate
The
estimation.
current missile defense appropriation for this next fiscal year is going to be $8.1 billion, just to put it into perspective. For 1 year of spending, where we've already committed to and spent more than well over $100 billion.
Mm-hmm. I appreciate it. Thank you. Sorry.
Thank you very much, Ron. And we can put the links maybe even on our Facebook page as well, and on our website. We're going to talk about that in just one moment as well. Sharon, if you come forward. At this time we do have an open mic time, but we're going to make a quick mention of the fact of how we get here and how we get from here. We are going to be passing the bucket around. If we can have some volunteers back there to do that in the back. Our costs are significant, but they are certainly not in personnel or in salary. This meeting room, nobody's paid at Campaign for Liberty. Nobody takes a salary. We're all volunteers. We do this because we believe in what we're talking about. We don't have funds on hand. We don't have a national organization that pays us money to do any of this, so we have to raise our own expenses. This room is $250. Also, all the other things that we do, robocalls and mailings and stuff. So if you would be generous when that comes around, that would be awesome. We have a way that we recognize and reward new people and people that bring new people, and Sharon Bean has graciously donated something that I think is pretty terrific, and I'm pretty sad I didn't have a new person here tonight. So tell us what you have, Sharon.
I have a very special gift for this. You want to open it so I can put my hand?
Sure. It is a Don't Tread on Me.
Yes.
Really nice combat type knife. You can cut your way out of your seatbelt with the thing too. It's just really a cool thing. And I'm going to put it back away before I hurt myself. Yeah, it's better than a slingshot for close combat. Okay, excellent. All right. Good deal. All right, we are all jealous. We have two quick speakers. While our first speaker is coming up, I'm going to make a very important announcement. Our first speaker is Al. Please come up, Al, talking about the Republic and why you're on your way up. The next fourth Tuesday is an incredibly important meeting for us here at Campaign for Liberty. It's April the 28th, and we have an amazing speaker, a very special speaker. He's been here once before, Tom DeWeese, and he is the featured speaker. He is the president of the American Policy Center. He is a longtime advocate of private property rights, individual liberties, personal privacy, and free enterprise. He's a noted writer, blogger, and editor of the DeWeese Report. He'll be teaching about your personal property rights, how to effectively push back against the United Nations anti-American agenda. And we would like you, if you would be so kind, to, when you go home, Google Tom DeWeese, that's D-E capital W-E-E-S-E, Tom DeWeese, and put Eventbrite, because we placed the event on Eventbrite, because we'd like for you to register, even though it is a free event, as all of our meetings here are the fourth Tuesday. But we'd like you to register so we know how many people are coming. This room has a finite amount of people that it will hold. So you can go on our Facebook page, you can go on hartfordliberty.org, or you can go just Google Tom DeWeese Eventbrite. You'll come right there and you'll be able to register. It's a free registration, but we invite you to do so, and we invite you to spread it around. If you're on social media, if you can just email that event to all the people you know that should know about this, it should be a huge event and a packed house, and we would love to have you help us promote that. So our first speaker, real quick, 2 minutes each, is going to be Al, and then Betty, you're on deck.
How you doing today? I'm not going to be brief because they are starting to let me talk at home now. Guy came up to me the other day and says, "How long you been working for the post office?" I said, "Well, ever since they threatened to fire me." All right, now I got you. Are we a nation of laws or men? Supposedly, right?
Yes.
But of course, the way they write the bills, and as Jeff said earlier, that the state police can interpret your need for concealed carry. We pretty much come a law of men, when men can decide what the law really says. Anyhow, now, anybody ever watch old westerns? Ever seen a western? And what do you have usually in a western? You got bad guys, good guys, and you got a what? You got a sheriff, right? One of the best illustrations, the difference between a democracy and a republic, is an old western. Can anybody think of anything that might illustrate that in a western?
Liberty, freedom.
All right, well,
The lynch mob and the sheriff stop.
Right, basically you got a guy who gets accused of something, he gets locked up. And then all the guys down at the saloon get themselves all in a froth, and they decide they're going to go and take the justice out. You know, right now they can't wait.
The mob, yeah.
Well, in a democracy, the sheriff would have to let them take the prisoner and do what it was, because majority rules, right? Isn't that how democracy works? But not in a republic. And the sheriff is the one who enforces the laws. So my point is that, well, I'll tell you what, better yet. Anybody heard of Clark County, Illinois? Two guys named Kirk Allen and John Kraft. Anybody heard of them?
Yeah, you told us.
Oh yeah, well, you don't count. Well, on May 13th, 2014, these two guys sat in on their county council meeting and listened to what went on. In the process of them doing their business, they broke the law. So at that point, they called the sheriff, informed the county council that they were making a citizen's arrest of the entire county council. Right? Of course, one of the county council members was a lawyer, and she said, you don't have to listen to that, go on home. Well, they wound up putting 6 of them in cuffs and taking them away. Now, 2 of them they didn't take away because they didn't vote for the reason they were being arrested. Right? But these 2 guys, 2 retired veterans who had enough of their what's the word I'm thinking of? Corruption in the county. They are now responsible for 102 public officials to resign or be removed from office. Wow. So they're cleaning house all by their little selves. So if anybody tells you you can't fight City Hall, tell that to Kirk Allen and John Cross.
That's a great story. Curtis is shaking a little bit. You've been warned, Curtis. No, Betty.
Hello, buddies. I'm a busy girl. I'm going to Annapolis a lot these days. 3 upcoming events that I'd like to call to your attention. And I'm sorry we heard something negative about Glenn Glass, because usually he gets it right. I don't know what happened with that other thing. And Vicki was kind enough to give us this very helpful paper. This Thursday, the 26th, his bill, it's 2 bills, where he wants to forbid the gas and electric from charging us a fee for opting out of the so-called smart meters. I'm going over. And and that is the correct date. It was scheduled from earlier. And if you're interested, you could fax him. You would fax him a testimony. Do it tomorrow, or do it early that morning, or you could come on over. It's in the Economic Matters room, and I think that's the 2nd floor. And all the hearings are at 1 o'clock. So. Again, they're punishing us. It's not fair. And miracle of miracles, Nathaniel McFadden, a Democrat in Baltimore City, agrees with him, so we have a shot at passing this. So please support it if you can. Okay, that's in 2 days. Maryland Gripe Day with a P. Jackie Auburn is organizing this. It's going to be a rally over in the Warriors Mall this coming Saturday, March 28th, 12 noon to 2. She's going to take a bullhorn. Anybody can speak. Anything you've got to gripe about. The fact that they got a watered down, repeal the rain tax bill. They turned that down, the one that we wanted. A whole bunch of things. Anything you want to gripe about. And I'm going to speak at it, but come on over and you can carry a sign, no sticks, and you can have your say. And these rallies are really fun. So, we have a lot to gripe about in Maryland. We got a pretty good governor, I think, but a lot of those knuckleheads over there, you know, how they vote. Do you know anybody have an antique car? There's some knucklehead in Annapolis that wants to raise the fee, you know about it, to own a license tag for an antique car. Give me a break. Ridiculous. And we voted for Hogan to lower taxes and fees. Okay, and I have a thing with the toll increases on the bridges. Key Bridge, I used it to get up from Annapolis, $4 one way. That's outrageous. And so that's one of my gripes. But anyway, gripe day, come on over if you can. And the third thing is, where is it? On April 15th, the second Wednesday of every month, it's, I think, the Northwest Baltimore County Republicans, something like that. Al Mendelson is one of the leaders. They're going to have their meeting at the Owens Mills Library. That's not too far from where I live. It's right near the Owens Mills Mall. Ann Miller, who fights Common Core, is going to be the featured speaker. She, like Vicky's another fighter against Common Core. But Ann Miller's going to be the featured speaker, and I am going. They meet at 7 o'clock. If you can, come on out and meet Ann Miller. She is dynamite. So, thank you.
Thanks, Betty.
Okay. All right, just an unscheduled announcement that we forgot about. Thank you, Dave, for the reminder. For those of you that don't know, on May the 16th, we're having a field trip to Gettysburg National Park. We're going to be led by 2 fully outfitted and very experienced Civil War reenactors. We'll be spending an hour, a little bit more than an hour, in the visitor center to watch the movie and visit the cyclorama, which is an amazing circular interactive painting. And then we'll be getting back on the buses to go and tour the battlefield and have Civil War reenactors describe what happened at each battlefield and really bring that event to life. Every person that attends will also get the name, every person or group, depending on how many names we have, will get the name of a Civil War soldier, and you'll be able to follow that soldier and find out what happened to him. Did he die in the battle? Did he go on to survive? Did he die later? You know, so, I mean, it'll bring real people to life for you. We're going to be leaving about 6:45 in the morning from the park and ride at Joppa at 95. And we'll be leaving about 6:45, coming back about 5:45. Adults, the cost is $50. That's for the bus, the trip itself, to the fee for the events at the visitor center, the movie, and the cyclorama. And coming back, we're going on Dylan's buses, so they're pretty nice buses. For children 18 and under, $45. And I see this as being a great family event. We haven't sent out the notices yet, but put it on your agenda, put it on your calendar, May 16th. And you all should be getting email notices soon. We'll have an Eventbrite page set up that you can go and take care of that. And next month, if you want to, we'll have it set up so you can pay here in person. So put it on your calendar. It should be a great time.
Thanks for that. Thanks for come right on up. Just for time, I just want to briefly introduce someone who's done a yeoman's work on some issues that are going on in Harford County. One especially about the Walmart issue. So Bill Whalen, everyone. We need you, Mike.
Thank you very much. I am Bill Whalen. I'm a retired Harford County citizen. I've previously, just give me my background, I worked at Maryland Shipbuilding and Dry Dock for 27 years, 23 years with a defense contractor. My background is engineering draftsman, procurement, contracting officer. I now work for the Lord at St. Matthew Lutheran Church, and I have 4 members here tonight that are members of Campaign for Liberty. I want to just give you some brief statistics. 0.3 of a mile from where I live is Evergreen Woods Apartments. They're going to start construction within the next few months. At Plumtree and Maryland 924 is the proposed Walmart, which I'm going to talk about. Right diagonally is MedStar. There's Magnus Hill beginning construction at Ring Factory and Tollgate Road. Box Hill down near Wegmans will be apartments. Why am I mentioning this? It's because our overly congested roads in this area are going to see really large construction. You're going to have road detours, you're going to have delays, and in essence, it's going to affect the quality of the life of the residents. Even after those proposed road improvements are made, there's going to be traffic gridlocks. The roads simply can't handle it. And I'll discuss that when I'm talking about the status of Walmart. So even if you're not a nearby resident and you travel those roads daily to work or to the store, you're going to incur delays at most times of the day on the weekends. Yes, at peak times, probably more so than any other time. So this evening, my presentation is going to be providing you with some factual information about the past and the current status of Walmart. Very quickly, I'm going to ask 4 questions. How many of people are familiar with the Walmart that I'm going to be talking about tonight and where it is? Quite a few. How many people are opposed to it? Quite a few. How many people really support it? Okay, that's fine. I see 1. And how many people really don't care, have an opinion? Okay, that's good. And that's your opinion, and that's the freedom that we have. Let me, before you even, for the first slide, let me tell you that Walmart has 4,516 stores in the United States, 647 Sam's Clubs, and Walmart International has 6,920. That's 11,453 stores as of 1/31. Back home, Maryland, 60 retail units, 26 supercenters, 22 discount stores, 12 Sam's Club. They employ a lot of people. I think, and this is my opinion, their intent is on world domination in the retail market, and they're already probably there. This year, everyone in the world will make 1.5 purchases at Walmart. I don't hate Walmart, I just don't like where they're going. And each week, nearly 1/3 of the U.S. population is going to the stores. How many people have gone to Walmart and shopped there? I'd say nearly everyone here. And that's a fact. So we're not against Walmart, we're not against free enterprise. In 2000, Walmart was sued 4,851 times, once every 2 hours. The Walton family, who founded Walmart, gives 2% of its net worth to charity. Bill Gates gives 48%, Warren Buffett gives 78%. So Walmart is big, really, really big. First slide. And if you continue to go with me.
You can go the right button. The right button. That's the laser.
Go ahead. You can, if you do it for me, I appreciate it.
All right.
Okay, what was proposed? 185,000 square foot supercenter at intersection Maryland 24 and Plumtree. Total property at this location, 33.6 acres. This is just a review. 5 building lots with Walmart built on 18.94 of these acres. It is B3, general business, which does allow Walmart to build there. It's a wide range of retail, service, and business uses. Next slide. What were the concerns and problems there? Residential area. It's in a development envelope. Traffic congestion. We already have a highly congested area. 1 block away will be Evergreen Woods. Safety, school children, the driving public, environmental issues. You're going to have trucks there 24, it's going to be open 24 hours a day, and there can be delivery at any time. Welfare and quality of life of residents. What is the need for another Walmart? We have one at Constant Friendship, We have one up on Falston and Blair Road. We have one out on Pulaski Highway. Next slide. What was done by the county, the government, and citizens? Community overflowed the auditorium at community input at Matterson Mill. Citizens spoke at the county council legislative session, urging the council members become more involved. County executive met with Walmart reps to try and convince them this site was not the right site to put a big box store. County council wrote a letter to Walmart offering help to expand their current Constant Friendship location. Next. Citizens formed groups, No Bel Air Walmart, staging periodic protests. They met with Walmart reps to demonstrate how Constant Friendship expansion was possible. I'll speak to that a little bit later, but it is possible to expand there despite what Walmart is saying. Their plans show 30,000 square foot future expansion on their own drawings when it was built. There's plenty of land to the left of it as well. The Development Advisory Committee, people turned out again in groves to voice their concerns. Then finally, the state highway denied access to Maryland 24 and 924. So I'm going to go now to what is the current status. Numerous back and forth traffic studies and submittals from the county and SHA to Walmart for over 2 years have gone on. Walmart then meets with the state highway and the county as recently as 9/17/14, and they say, will you please reconsider and allow us direct access to Maryland 924? The only access would really exist from Blue Spruce Parkway, which is a new road, and that would go to Plumtree on one end and Bel Air South Parkway on the other. The county then provided Walmart with 17 required road intersection improvements on 115, and they continue to deny direct access. Festival never got access to Maryland 924. Other people didn't get access to 924. Well, Walmart says, I want it. Then the state, which is really was upsetting, they reversed their decision for access denial on Maryland 924 and said, oh, okay, we'll make it right in, right out access. That happened, if you notice the dates, 115 to 121. So there was a disconnect between the county and the state. Next slide. Councilman McMahon writes a letter to Barry Glassman on 117, and he really was upset about what the state highway had done. And he requested that the county adopt amendments now to its development regs to give the county complete control over any big box store, and including design, etc., and the amendments, all retroactive to pending project. Well, I don't believe the county should have complete control, but what we do need are some improvements to the zoning code that has requirements for big box stores. We call them general merchandise stores over 75,000 square feet. There was Senator Castley and Delegate McComas asked the state highway, please explain why you've reversed that decision to allow them. And at the bottom, you'll see that the state highway responds on 212. So we're getting real close. I'm really bringing you up with current status, as you'll see, with rationale that the right in and the right out really would help the network, and it would make it operate in a more efficient and effective manner. In other words, in addition to having an entrance on a new Blue Spruce Road to Walmart from Bel Air South Parkway at Plumtree, the state highway did their own independent analysis and believed it would actually help the traffic flow if there was a right in, and which would be southbound on 924 going south, and then access if you were heading towards I-95. So if you were coming north on 924, you could get in, or going south on 924, excuse me, you could make a right to get in on that road, and then if you wanted to leave, you would have to make a right out, right in, right out. Next slide. So Then Walmart meets with the county. So they call their meeting and the county, and they meet with them, and then they request a new traffic impact analysis for right-in, right-out access. What happened, Walmart had to formally request that of the county, and then the county followed the SHA reversal because Maryland 924 is really a state road. It's not a county road. I found that there was so much differences between what the state highway was saying, what the county was saying, and what the traffic group for Walmart was saying. Trust me, there is so much confusion on a traffic impact analysis and the complications that they go through. So I can understand the confusion. So Walmart comes back March 12th, providing the county with impact comparisons. And not only do they want right in and right out, they want full movement access, which means at Bel Air South Parkway, they want to be able to have cars come up northbound on 924 and be able to make a left. Well, Bel Air South Community holds a public meeting at McFall Center, and this was just on 3/15, to show the citizens what road improvements were requested by SHA, the county, and the independent traffic analysis. We had someone actually do their own independent analysis, and they found that there were more road improvements required than even what the county was stating. Not niceties, but they found some discrepancies. So these discrepancies are going on and on and on. So, next slide, please. Walmart calls the county list of traffic improvements unfair. Did anyone see the paper in the Aegis? Front page. Walmart calls them unfair. They're okay to do $4 million of road improvements, but they're not okay with $6 million. Now, give me a break, really. With all the bigness of Walmart, and they want to try to compare their cost to MedStar and Evergreens near the site. The costs by MedStar are minimal because it's as you come out of there from where the Walgreens is. And the Evergreen Woods Apartments, which personally I was opposed to, and I'll tell you why in a moment, their costs are actually less. This is what the Evergreen Woods Apartments, because I'm moving along as if a lot of people know about it, is actually going to extend Tollgate Road from Plumtree through that development all the way down to McFalls, where the saloon is, the bar and whatnot. So what they wanted to do to where I'm living in Cedar Springs and being a resident for 28 years, along with all the other people that lived that westbound road, was close Plumtree at 24 to have no access out. That's how I got involved in fighting not only Evergreen, but fighting Walmart as well. That was the beginning of this. And there was a lot of other people, obviously, no Bel Air South Walmart, and I see some folks here that were there last Sunday. So they want to negotiate with the county for less improvements at a lesser cost. This could really require the county to foot the bill for additional improvements if that ever happened. So they continue to claim the expansion is not a feasible option, but it's hard for them to explain what they, why they want to move, because they call it multiple factors. I said before, constant friendship can be expanded. I talked about the original Walmart drawing. I talked about 30,000 square feet to the left of the building. The county claims they do follow the adequate public facilities ordinance for traffic mitigation and road improvements. I can't determine what is the law, but I think they know enough about what their requirements are. They've done it before, and they require other people to do it. In the paper, next slide, please, the Walmart attorney claims the county's not following the law. He claims that they're being asked to fix the sins of the world that they're not causing. And then they say to the extent Walmart does or does not go there, traffic's not getting better. That's a true statement. We all know that traffic is not going to get better. Walmart spokesman says if the county continues to insist on a more expensive and expansive improvements, they will need to reassess the impact in deciding to proceed. I hope they do, and I hope it goes away. I think the county is applying the law, and if Walmart believes the laws are unfair, excessive, then pack up and leave. That's my opinion. Now Walmart is sending emails to their supporters on 3/17, that was just last week, and they were asking them to let the community know they support Walmart's proposed road improvements and feel the county's demands are unfair. The Bel Air South community responds to Walmart comments on 3/18 as being misinformation and provides information to the Aegis contradicting Walmart's claims and comments. To date, the Aegis did not report it on last week, and I understand I contacted Berna today. I wrote an editorial letter myself talking about the fact that there was a lot of misinformation in this paper. I don't know if it'll get printed tomorrow or not, and if it doesn't, we're going to be sitting down with the Aegis to put our side of the story together. Next slide. I think this is important, and I'll try to go through it real quick. We had problems. What would change or what changes would reduce those? We believe that the public needs to get involved whenever land is rezoned, and in the Walmart case, land was rezoned from the high-density residential to high-density B3 in 2009 during comprehensive zoning. Curtis, you know I've been on the county council and P&Z, and I believe they need to develop design standards for the retail establishments in excess of 75,000 square feet, and have these under what is known in the zoning code as special developments or special exceptions. Right now, they're not there. That means the county council has no control over it. Anything that's under special development or special exceptions is a Board of Appeals case, and the Board of Appeals is the county council. The other thing I think we need to do is update the attic public facilities ordinance in the zoning code to restrict developments that cause increase in traffic. Next slide, please. We need to have legislation to limit high traffic projects, understand the impacts, and give the communities and the neighborhoods a voice and a vote in the process, and revise the zoning code to match intensity and density levels, and hold those employees working for the citizens accountable. Next slide. More informed and follow what the zoning code needs. Public needs to speak up at comprehensive zoning hearings, piecemeal zoning hearings, and special development and special exception hearings. And then at the bottom, I've got once zoning is granted, the public has little ability to change anything. We're trying to change that now. We're writing letters to the executives at Walmart. I told you how big they are. We have gotten through, believe it or not. So if anybody cares to write a email or whatnot, just come over and see me. I'll give you some points to put in it and people to contact. I wanted to say, Curtis, and you know I've talked before in the council, that things are happening. I like the new administration. I like Barry Glassman wanting the people to, the administration to communicate. I met with Brad Gillian, the new director of planning and zoning. Cindy Mummy, if you have any questions, she's been a breath of fresh air. Things are looking much, much better. And I really like the new track it system that the county has come up with. You can now go online and follow Walmart or any of these developments. So I encourage you to go to the site. There's been some information out. Does anybody hear about track it or not? You need to really look into it. It's good. I like it. And I like the fact that planning and zoning is listening. They made it easier for the public to speak at agenda items at the legislation. If you come in late, you can still sign up and speak. So I'm going to put one more slide up and I'm done. Hartford County Code, Zoning Code 267-9I. If that Walmart was under special development or special exception, here's what it says. The council shall not approve an application if it finds the proposed building, addition, extension of building, or use or change of use would adversely affect the public health, safety, and general welfare, or would result in dangerous traffic conditions or jeopardize the lives or property of people living in the neighborhood. Trust me, Walmart is doing that to us. This is the final thing. I guess I have no time for questions? No, okay.
Whalen, could I say something? Sure. You said the unfair. What's unfair is for a kid walking to one of the 4 schools along 924 to get hit by a car going the speed limit, which was 40 miles an hour. That's really unfair. That big box store should not be put there. I don't care how it was zoned.
I'm not for it, sir.
I know that. You're not. My first cousin's son, 23 years old, was hit by a car on January the 12th of last year. He left a 6-month-old son and a 2.5-year-old daughter. He was trying to get to work, crossing one of those damn intersections with all these turn lanes and shift lanes and all these different technical terms. But the kid was 5 months from graduating from college, working a job, got hit by a car and killed. And the county's going to put a big box store. Kids that go to those schools, if they live within 1.4 miles of the school, they don't get a bus service. I'm a walker. Have you ever tried to cross 924 rush hour? I'm telling you, you take your life in your hands. How many people text when they're driving? Who drives on 924 and does the speed limit? They don't. People are trying to make that light when there are 2 lanes. Kids, what's unfair is a kid getting hit by a car when we know it's going to happen.
Oh, it's going to happen.
The county should not let that happen.
Yeah. And I spoke before the Board of Education, my own granddaughter. Thank you. My own granddaughter walks to school and has to cross Moores Mill Road. So I wasn't not only talking for her, but I was talking for all the other kids that are forced now to ride, to walk to school in a bus. I'm sorry for your loss. I really am.
Thank you very much.
We should not let that happen to our kids.
You have time for a comment?
Absolutely not, but go ahead.
Now, I've listened to this stuff for over 40 years. Now, I haven't quite lived my whole life in Hartford County. I'm only 82. But I want to tell you this. The problem is, look in the mirror. Anybody that has moved that is not born and raised in this county is to blame for what's going on. And the last person that moves in is the first one that hollers the loudest. All over the county this is going on. And I went halfway around the world during the Korean War, helped to save somebody else's land. Came back here and get zoned into poverty for my farm. My dad was a farmer in World War I. Came back to the farm. Brother in World War II came back to the farm. Korea came back to the farm. I've got a 400-acre farm. It's zoned to nothing.
Yep.
All the way down.
That's a
So
travesty.
if you're gonna gripe about the development, look in the mirror.
That's a travesty. I totally agree. Curtis, I'm so sorry. It's just for time. Curtis, you went 30 seconds.
No, I just want to say thank you to Ms. Wells because factual information, and understand what Sam said is truth also. We're the county council. I'm one vote on the council. Yes, there's some laws that we would like to change, but where the problem comes in is trying to make it retroactive. That's a lawsuit waiting to happen that the county can't afford. Okay? But again, my hat's off to Bill there. He gets it, but the bottom line is everybody in here needs to be doing exactly what he's doing because that's the only way things are going to change. Walmart is huge. And I'm telling you, pressure is put on the council and everybody all the way down. The citizens need to get involved.
Thank you. The message tonight is definitely get involved and get informed, and we're going to be informed about something that's going on in Harford County politics, and from Dave Pridgeon, and if you think you're mad now.
I apologize for my appearance. I haven't shaved in a while. I have a number of obligations with the National Park Service over the next couple weeks that require a certain look. And y'all know my love for history. Last night was the 240th anniversary of Patrick Henry's "Give Me Liberty or Give Me Death" speech. 240 years last night. And starting tomorrow, the next 3 weeks play out. The 150th anniversary of the end of the Civil War, starting tomorrow with the Battle of Fort Stedman. The battles go on almost every day for the next couple weeks. Hundreds and thousands of men lose their lives each day, leading up till, April 1st, Battle of Five Forks, April 6th. Lee loses a third of his army at Sailor's Creek. It goes up to surrender that's coming up April 9th. That'll be the 150th anniversary. And then April 14th, the assassination of Lincoln. So, all this stuff is dear to me from the standpoint of, I can almost place myself and picture what went on at these different events. And it just breaks my heart that with Common Core, kids are not going to be brought up with this love of history that I've had in my life, So, real quick, because time's up, we got to get going. I want to tell you about something that occurred. And first I'm going to read just 2 paragraphs from a Baltimore Sun article. The title, it was February 24th, and the title of the article is "Hogan Appoints Harford Elections Board," and then next part of the title, "Beulah to Critical Area Commission." Okay, the 3 new appointments and I'm just taking some excerpts out here. 3 new appointments to the County Elections Board are Joe Fleckenstein. Joe, raise your hand. Allison McCord and Victoria Sightsinger. Vicki, raise your hand. And then the article goes on and says Hogan also reappointed Maureen Neal and Dan B. Raleigh, a former state delegate, both of whom are delegates. By law, the new board takes office June 1st. Fleckenstein, McCord, and Sightsinger, all Republicans, will replace Edward Yoder and William Cristoforo, both Republicans, and Democrat Carolyn Evans. Well, the appointments of Vicki and Joe have been rescinded, okay? And it's Harford County's loss, because over the last couple of years, they've been some of the most involved citizens in this county, okay? And why they were rescinded was, you all remember HB 1513 last year, where they tried down Annapolis to stack our Republican Central Committee and place the delegates from Harford County, the Republican delegates, onto our Central Committee. You remember that? Yes. Okay. Well, this is HB 1513 Part 2. Okay? And we don't have the whole thing, all the facts yet. We're working on it. But we know somebody from the delegation went to the governor's office, misrepresented themselves as representing the whole delegation, and said the entire delegation disagrees with these 2 appointments. And the governor got in the way and stopped them. Okay? And, we believe right now Pat McDonough was the lead person on this. All right? So, once again, it's the delegation down Annapolis getting in the way. These people were nominated by they were voted on by the Central Committee in Harford County. So the 12 people that we all elected on that Central Committee, 3 of whom are in this room, made the nominations to the governor, and then they were overrode. So we still yet have to work the whole story out before, we try and exact some political retribution. But what I want to do here in a little bit of time we got left is I want to read an email to Vicki and Joe and to the other activists in this room who over the last couple of years have been busting their rear ends trying to put the word, make Republican mean conservative again, okay? And this email was written by my political mentor. His name is Mike Rothfeld, and he's a national political operative. You all don't know who he is, but for instance, he ran Ron Paul's campaigns, and he ran Rand Paul's campaign, you know, to get elected to Senate. And this is the email he wrote, and I think it's totally appropriate for this situation. And the title of the email was "The Empire Will Strike Back." And it goes like this. Many of you reading this started in activist liberty politics sometime in the last few years. Maybe it was Ron Paul exciting you to change things. Maybe it was Barack Obama jolting you out of your it'll all work lethargy. Maybe you just grew up and realized the world you live in was, in part, up to you to restore and protect. And if you are one of these people, you may have enjoyed some early success. Easy success utilizing the confrontational approach and the tactics and techniques we teach. A favorite note I received summarized the results of using the approach in a small local fight as, quote, hilariously one-sided, unquote. But as many of you are finding out, our opponents, the establishment status of both parties, and ideological left agitators are capable of striking back. In the rise of the Tea Party and the general revolt against the status quo, many local party and even state-level fights were won, and often won easily. Politicians and political actors were caught flat-footed by rapidly changing political forces. For example, the defeat of Senator Bob Bennett of Utah and the humiliation of Representative Mike Castle in Delaware, GOP party transformations in Iowa, Missouri, Nevada, Alaska, and Virginia, the size and ferocity of the National Association for Gun Rights following the Connecticut shooting, Medicare expansions blocked, red light cameras tore down, the elections of Senators Rand Paul, Mike Lee, Ted Cruz, and Representative Tom Massey. But your opponents also learn from history. They have resources and experience, and they will use them, sometimes fairly, sometimes unfairly, often a mixture of both. In some of the examples above, we lost the next fight. Others we won, but only after hard, bitter contests. If you expect to win every fight, or for your opponents to quit after a defeat, you will not last long or make much difference for the future. Your opponents may cheat, lie, and steal. They will break rules to take back what they consider theirs. An example, the Alaska GOP. They will lie to politicians, your supporters, and the press about you, your plans, your candidates. An example, the Virginia's 7th Congressional District races for chair and Congress last year, i.e. the Dave Brat race. They will use muscle to simply replace people elected fair and square. Example, Ron Paul delegates from Maine, Louisiana, Massachusetts, and elsewhere. Sometimes you can, as Morton Blackwell teaches. Morton Blackwell's the head of the Liberty Institute, and within conservative circles, he's been training conservative political activists for decades, and he's a legend. So sometimes you can, as Morton Blackwell teaches, make the steel more expensive than it's worth. Okay? Get that point. Make the steel more expensive than it's worth. For example, the abuse of rules in Virginia's 2014 GOP fights was a contributing factor in ex-majority leader Eric Cantor's defeat in the primary a few weeks later. Sometimes you cannot. But a key point here. But either way, you cannot permit the abuse to erode your resolve to fight on, nor to sour the hope of your supporters. Perhaps the most painful thing is to fight with opponents who not that long ago were also ideological outsiders, pounding to get in and change things. Now they are the insiders, part of the access-based world that follows the direct path to politics. If you have ever heard me teach the real nature of politics and politicians, you may remember my saying, quote, access is what 95% of activists who are any good end up selling out for, unquote. This applies to those who fought their way in. And you should continually replenish the pipeline of new leaders to keep the cause rolling, no matter what happens to you or to others. The other side may win for a season or even many seasons. Some of our friends and co-laborers will falter, slip away, or sell out. But if we are faithful to what we are doing and do it well, then I am confident in the ultimate outcome, and I believe you may be also. Thank you.